So in the spring of 2018, I was helping some friends of mine remodel a house. And before we started demolition, we had a ton of trash and junk to haul to the dump from the previous owners that they just left there. Among all of that junk and trash, I found thousands upon thousands of old 120 film negatives. Now, I held a lot of these up to the light just to kind of see if I could tell what the photographs were. And from the looks of them, they look like they were from the early 20th century. So with that in mind, I salvaged hundreds of them. I really didn't know what I was going to do with them. I thought maybe one day I'll figure out a way to scan them and take a look at them. But just from holding them up to the light, I saw that they were kind of cool. So I just wanted to take a bunch home. And they've really just sat in a box in my garage for the past year. And it wasn't until I saw a video by Matt Day, I'll link the video up, I guess it's over here, where he was showing how to scan film using a digital camera. And in his video, he was using a Fujifilm X-T2. Well, I watched that video and it was really fascinating to me, and it motivated me and inspired me to get out all those old negatives and try this out for myself. Now, I will warn you, the way I did it, I didn't want to spend any money at all. And the way I did it was really rudimentary and, quite frankly, Bush League. If you want to know how to do it the proper way or the right way, I would suggest watching his video, and if you can afford the little things you have to buy, I would suggest doing it that way. But if you're like me and you didn't want to buy anything, and you have a macro lens or really any lens and a good tripod, you can do it the way I did it. So my process was, I literally just taped a single negative using some painter's tape up to one of my windows, put my camera on a tripod, kind of leveled it off so it was, facing the film. It wasn't at an angle, it was facing it straight on. I used the Fuji 60mm macro lens, and that worked a treat for this. I used focus peaking to make sure I was all in focus. I shot at about f6.4 or something like that. I used a 2-second timer, that way, the tripod wasn't shaking or anything like that. And I literally just snapped a shot, took it down, put the tape on a new negative, stuck the negative back up there, and I just repeated this process over and over again. Now, it's not nearly as efficient as, something like what Matt Day did. It's a little more time consuming, but if you have the time and you're patient and you enjoy just this kind of process, then, it's not that bad. So needless to say, the last several days for me have been combing through hundreds and hundreds of these negatives, holding them up to the light one by one to see if they're interesting enough for me to, go through the process with. My desk for the last several days has just been littered with all kinds of negatives, just, culling them and combing through and setting aside the ones that I think are the best. And it's been a really fun process, just negatives everywhere, but I've managed to kind of get it down to several dozen photographs that I think are really cool, unique, and random. They're kind of all over the place. From what I can gather, whoever this was like their hobby for them, and so they just shot anything and everything. Now, as for the time period, it kind of varies. I see some photos that look like they're in the 20s, and then some photos that look like they're in the 1940s, just judging by, cars. So looking at all the packets that the negatives came in, I was trying to scour those and look for dates. I was only able to really see 2 dates. One of those dates I found kind of confirmed what I had believed. A lot of these were taken in the 1920s. And so as you can see with this date here, it's August of 1920, which is just shy of 100 years ago. And then the only other date I was able to find was 1944. So these photographs span decades. Looking at these photographs, and after I converted them into Lightroom, it's just, I'm kind of a history nerd, and when you couple that with photography, I start to really get excited and I geek out. So looking back at all these photographs from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, they're just fascinating to me to see a different time period, a different culture altogether almost. So anyway, the way I was able to convert them to a positive, I actually just used a trial version of what Matt Day did. I think it's Negative Lab Pro, and that works pretty good, except for it only lets you do 12 free, which is understandable. And then after that, it's $100 to buy a license. Once again, I wasn't willing to pay any money, even though I think that's a pretty good price to pay if you're going to document your own work, or if you have like a lot of family photographs that you want to archive, I think that'd be worth it for that purpose. But alas, I am cheap, so I Googled how to convert a negative to a positive in Lightroom, and I came across this article. Needless to say, it's super easy, and I had no idea you could do it this simple in Lightroom. So I'm going to show you how I did it in Lightroom really quick. It's super easy, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to run a slideshow of all my favorite shots that I've been able to convert. So the way to convert this from a negative into a positive in Lightroom is extremely simple and easy. All you have to do is go to your tone curve feature, go down here to where it says click to edit point curve. You want to click that and then make sure it's on the RGB channel. And then all we're going to do is we're going to flip this line. We're going to take this point and move it up here. And we're going to take this point over here and move it down here. So watch what happens when I do this. And we're going to take this point and move it down in the opposite direction. And there is your positive image. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll take down the saturation, because you can still see that there's color. So I'll take the saturation, bring it all the way down to negative 100, and then you're left with a pure black and white image. And then from there, you can really edit the image like you would any other photo. Now, what I will say is it kind of acts like it's still a negative. So if I want to raise the exposure, instead of going to the right, it actually brings it down. It's opposite. So you'll want to go to the left if you want to raise the exposure. Same goes for things like the highlights. As you can see, it does the opposite. So after I've kind of played around with it and kind of got it to where I want it, I'll go and crop it. So I'll just crop in all the edges, all the stuff I don't want in the photo. And there's the final image. It is pretty amazing to me to be able to edit photos that have been taken 80, 90, 100 years ago. So if we look at the before, this is the import, and then the after. So what I've done is, since I'm scanning a ton of these old photographs, I actually made a preset. All I did was just adjust the tone curve like I did and take down the saturation, and I converted that into a preset that you can see here. I just called it negative to positive. So anytime I scan some film, instead of having to manually do everything, I just click the negative to positive and it converts it for me, and then I adjust it from there. I want to give a shout out once again to Matt Day for making his video on scanning film with the X-T2. It really inspired me. And without that little inspiration, I may have never done this. And for me, it's been super exciting and just really fun to look through all these old photos. I hope this video inspires you like Matt Day's video did for me. It's been a really fun process, and this may even encourage me to start shooting film on my own. My brother-in-law gave me a gorgeous Yashica 635, and this may inspire me to start using that and then scanning film, and I may even start doing it in a more proper manner from now on. So anyway, without further ado, here are my favorite shots that I've been able to scan. I hope you enjoy them.